Please rise for the invocation by Reverend Bill Gerard, retired United Methodist pastor.
Let us pray. Holy and gracious God, whose blessings we receive each and every day, make us mindful of how all that we are and all that we have comes from your providence, poured out continuing in our lives. Among those gifts we receive from you are our reason and our ability to communicate and work together for the betterment of all. May we tonight, as we carry out the political process of democratic governance, be mindful of your call to seek the higher principles you have given to those who have been given authority to oversee the common life of this city. May your justice prevail over expediency. May your compassion for the least of these prevail over the demands of the powerful. May the common good prevail over narrow interest. May our common bearing of your image prevail over the ways of prejudice and division. We pray for this council and for all who serve in our city government, for all those who live in our city and who are making a difference by their life and work, by their constructive citizenship. And we pray for those who struggle still to find a constructive role in the life of our city. We pray for our city and all its diversity of hopes and dreams, of race and class, of levels of comfort and well-being, that all might be blessed by your ever-loving mercy today and always. I pray in the name of the one whom I believe in. Amen.
Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we lost this weekend Nancy Brown, the children's librarian at Bridgeview Library. She died unexpectedly following routine surgery. Let's observe a moment of silence in her memory. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask for a motion that we allow those who wish to speak about a specific agenda item prior to the time of action on that item, and be permitted to do so at this time. So,
Second.
motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Mr. Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion is carried. It's unanimous. All members are present. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, with great respect, I would like to suggest to you that motion that you just passed is out of order as a basis of that it doesn't appear on the agenda, and because of that, it puts in a position of not being aware and being in line with what was passed by the council on October the 2nd. Would remind you, because you may want to change this, that it is not a specific agenda item either in that motion, just to mention that we have to speak to. I believe Ms. Patton and you as well have spoken to the fact and to me that was the intention of the original motion, and I think that's maybe what you want to do. That's certainly up to the council. But it would seem to me that since it's not on the agenda, that you would have to have the previous motion of the council to consent to putting something on the agenda, since this is an action that's being taken here this evening. And so that's my concern. I would really very respectfully request that at some point you actually pass a motion or do the process that is necessary to have this as a part of an agenda. I very much applaud this, as I've said in the past, and want to have this opportunity here as well. So I just wanted to make that statement tonight to the agenda. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Moon, I thank you very much. The motion that we made addresses tonight's meeting and not prior meetings at all. As far as I'm concerned, it stands, but I would entertain any opposing or differing viewpoints. There being none, I would ask if there's anyone present who would like to speak about a specific agenda item. There being no one desiring to speak, I would ask for Dean Kaminsky to come forward. And council, this is our turn. We get to shake hands with all of the successful graduates of the 2012 class of Hickory Neighborhood College, or is it university now?
I have a short presentation to show you as well.
Oh, we're gonna show
Yeah, so we can
Let's
see-
do that first, all right?
Do that. You want to stand the whole time. Well, good evening, Mayor Wright, City Council, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Crow. Thank you for letting me do this tonight. I'm excited because actually this was my first time going through it as well. So I am honored to be a part of the class as well as the This is the 13th Neighborhood College class, and 16 Hickory citizens are graduating from the class tonight. Some of these graduates have lived in Hickory a very long time, whereas some have lived here only a short time. And our graduates, of course, come from a host of different backgrounds, different businesses, different organizations, and volunteer for different organizations in our community. They have attended city council meetings, board and commissions meetings, special meetings, events, lots of different things that they've done uptown, festivals, and neighborhood meetings and more. I'm very proud of all of them have attended numerous different things. This is a 10-week program. It was on Monday evenings, and it covered a variety of different city departments and topics. And I'm just going to show you some pictures of some of the fun that we had. The mayor, of course, spoke, and our communications and branding director, Mandy Pitts, and our city administration spoke. They covered topics as far as how city council even operates and functions within the city, the mayor's role, branding of our city, finances at a glance, our council mayor setup. They've learned a lot of different things about inspiring spaces. And then a fire department, of course, was our one of our topics and departments, and they extricated a car, which is always a huge, exciting thing for them. They get to see the car being completely torn apart and how it would actually be if somebody was trapped in it. So that was a really exciting evening, and it did rain, so they had tents out for us, and it didn't stop the excitement of our class. We got to go to the library and take a tour, learned a lot about the genealogy department as well as the children's department and all the different areas that they have there. Ms. Humphreys did a wonderful presentation about all the different avenues and the people that come to the libraries and what goes on, all the programming that they have there. Parks and Recreation did a wonderful presentation as well about all the different, my gosh, so many different things that they have at the parks and all the wonderful parks that we have. The YMC and the City of Hickory swim program, our Zora Baker Park, and just the different Ridgeview and Highland recreation centers that they have. That's just some of the topics. The police department was another exciting department, and all of the department heads there spoke, and they did a K-9. If you could see, it's a little dark, but it was a little dark out that evening. But the K-9 division actually had him come out and show how he operated with the K-9 and all his commands and things, as well as the special operations team. And that was really interesting to see them in full gear coming out and teaching us what they have to actually go through. The airport, got to take a tour of the museum as well as the tower. So everybody got to go up into the tower. It's not something people get to do every day at the airport. So it was very special. We actually saw a flight, I think it was coming in or taking off, one of them, the night that we were there. And then planning and development, of course, talking all about the grants and the different. They actually spoke about the boards and commissions that night as well, so we learned a lot about things that go on within our community, how to get involved, took a tour of our new area over here as well, which was a really nice addition to City Hall. And then public services, which incorporated public utilities and public works, and you just see a lot of the people standing around, but that was tours of the water treatment plant, which was fascinating. It was the first time I actually had gotten to go there as well. We got to take a tour of the lab, learn all about our water, how important it is, how you're going to hear some things tonight about why our water is so important, which you all know. But it was fascinating, I think, to them as well as to me to learn about all that's involved in that. It's not a simple process. And it was fascinating to hear about that, as well as the street department, traffic, and all the divisions within public services. So we were very well educated on the city and the 10 weeks. So it was a wonderful education process for each one of us. In that, I would like to also recognize that some of these graduates, we hope all of them, will end up on boards and commissions in the future, as well as neighborhood groups and be liaisons for their businesses for the city. I've heard really positive things from them, so I'm honored that I was able to be a part of this class specifically too. I have two students that are actually going to come up and speak to us tonight about their experiences. They are a married couple, Andrew Straw and Anita Joy. AOI Council, so much for the opportunity to get to attend the neighborhood college. It was recommended to be by a friend, and I thought, if she recommends it, it must be good, and she was right. We moved here a couple of years ago from Charlotte. I've lived there for 18 years, and I was a little concerned about what all I was going to miss in Charlotte. But it didn't take me long to learn that there are a lot of friendly people in Hickory, and I'd already, even before the college, I'd started bragging to my friends about what an amazing number of arts organizations there are in the town and how many things there are to do and ways to get involved. And I also bragged about how when you go to a play or a concert, you don't have to pay for parking in downtown. And I really appreciate that. But now that I've gone through the neighborhood college, I've learned so much more about the city, and I really appreciate how well run it is. I get to brag to Charlotte friends about how we have city management form of government before Charlotte did. And I really, really appreciate all the time and energy that went into planning this program, and all the people who made it such a good and a positive experience for us. I will now, in turn, wholeheartedly recommend this program to all of my friends and colleagues. So thanks again.
Mayor Wright, council members, Manager Barry, and Dana, thanks for inviting me to share my experience over the past 10 weeks, which, by the way, just kind of flew by. They say time flies when you're having fun, and I think that all of my classmates and I really had fun in the program. Of course, as Dana showed you, we were wowed by the police and fire departments with demonstrations of state-of-the-art equipment, and there's something about fire and rescue equipment and canine dogs and special tactics people that just generates a lot of excitement. But notwithstanding those, I wanted to share with you the top 3 impressions that the program made on me. The first is one of the magnitude of what our city government manages every day. Every weekly presentation was an eye-opener, if not a jaw-dropper. We learned many things that when you think about them are just astounding. Who knew, for example, that Hickory has 39 playgrounds, or that Public Services takes care of 630 lane miles of roadway and almost 200 traffic signals, not only for the city, but on behalf of the state. The city picks up 6 million pounds of leaves. I'm telling you that. You know it. But I'll tell you, when friends from other states and cities visit us here, that's one thing they envy about Hickory, especially at this time of year. The airport, 100 aircraft operations every day. Who knew? A couple of years ago, when we learned the news that Apple Computer was going to build their data center in Catawba County, I was really interested in that, particularly in why did Apple Computer choose here versus all the places literally in the world that they could choose. And so I first read about it in an international magazine, The Economist, and then in Time and some other magazines. But one of the reasons that they cited for choosing Hickory was the availability of water supply. And so I knew that. I knew that from back when it happened. But what I didn't know was that water supply was the city of Hickory water supply, and that we're a regional water supplier. Who knew? So with apologies to Chief Holler and to Chief Atkins, who I don't think is here, I really have to give a big shout out of the program to Kevin Greer and Public Services for being just too cool. Luring a global organization into Hickory with just plain clean water. Secondly, I have to give my compliments to City Manager Barry and all the leaders in city government for the pervasive culture of excellence, enthusiasm, and customer service that was evident in every location we visited. We saw many examples of that. Just a couple that stay in my mind, of how the city serves the citizens. The planning department has worked together with the county to provide a one-stop shopping streamlined permit process. the library has a special department for genealogy research because that's what the citizens are interested in. There are many more, and I could go on and on about all the things we learned, but what I want to convey to you is I really graduate with the lasting impression that our city employees are fired up about what they do. And they do a great job for us, and I think that's a tribute to the leadership, and it makes me proud to live here and want to help tell their story. The third and final observation I want to share is that the city departments all really rolled out the red carpet for us. And the neighborhood college program was, to coin a phrase, I would say it was well crafted. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all my classmates in extending a warm thank you not only to Dana for putting it all together, but for all the department heads, managers, supervisors, specialists who stuck around after work on Monday night to welcome us and present to us. And so we're grateful to you, and we thank you for what you do for us every day. So before I turn the podium back over to Dana, I wanted to just ask my classmates, if you would, to join me in giving you all a big hand and thank you for the neighborhood college.
That was great. Thank you both very much. And I'm very proud of all of the graduates tonight and them attending and being very engaged in this process and what they've learned. I mean, they had great questions. There were some that stayed. I mean, we were there for 2 hours and they said we could have stayed all night. And I said, well, that's wonderful. And so some of them stayed for quite a while. And I appreciate the professors and everybody that taught being willing to give of themselves on Monday nights as well. If you don't mind now, if you would come forward and actually let them graduate. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all for those great remarks, and I appreciate you letting me write those for you. I will tell you, I thought I had a little more emphasis on the mayor. Well, we are proud of our graduates. I always say, y'all have heard me say this, about 1 out of 200, about 1/2% of the people in Hickory serve on a board or commission. 1 out of 200. The investment we make in this college and what it does, just like your friend told you, you need to go to this. You'll learn a lot. You'll like it. We get a tremendous amount of mileage out of this, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate our staff always coming through the way they come through. Okay. We're going to do this. You want me to call out the honor graduates? Or just call. You want me to recognize the honor graduates?
We can just do graduates.
Just do graduates.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how do you get to be an honor graduate?
Well, how they actually got to graduate is they had to go to so many classes, and then they got extra credit points if they attended additional functions. And then if you got an honor graduate, it was attending way up and above. And I will recognize our valedictorian, which we have Leslie termed that this year as Sandra Johnson, because she had gone to, I think, maybe 10. college, so we were very proud of her for doing that.
So that's what some of these have some gold stars on them here.
Exactly.
Helmets.
Mayor's thumb.
It's like helmet stars.
We are going to recognize even the ones who are not here tonight due to other functions or work events that they had.
Okay.
But Beth Ames.
Congratulations. How you doing?
You going to hand it? Well, you want me to hand them out? Okay.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Jan Caldwell, but she's not here tonight. Mike Carpenter, he's also not here. David Easter. Anita Durant.
Hey, Anita, there's an H on this one. I'm not going to tell you what that means.
Sandra Johnson.
We'll go to that thing. There's an H. And I think there's a V on it.
Kirby Kepler and Patricia Leo back here tonight. Janet Hyder.
Keep her straight.
Richard Reed is not here tonight. Frank Stevenson. Harriet Stevenson. Andrew Shaw. Janet Walden. And then Walden.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
And before we close on tonight's activities with Neighborhood College, I wanted to also give Mary an opportunity to say a few words to our neighborhood college students.
Well, before we do that, Mr. Berry, it's my great honor. Come up here, Dana. Dana apparently got her full credits too. And she's not the valedictorian, but she's an honor graduate. Way to go, Dana.
So I just want to take a moment to thank Dana, thank Mandy Pitts for kind of originating this many years ago. We appreciate as city staff the gratitude that you all have expressed to us this evening, and we want to kind of turn that back around and express that to you all as well. One of the interesting differences but similarities between a business environment and a government, and especially a local government, is in the business world, we hear a lot about the importance of customer service. And we talk about that in our world as well, but there's an important distinction between a customer and a citizen. A customer receives a service or a product in exchange for typically money. In a government and in governance, the citizens are actively a part of what takes place in their community. That can be as minimum as voting when those opportunities come around, or it can grow and evolve to, of course, running for offices, but serving on boards and commissions, and all of the different ways that the citizens really make Hickory this great place. Whether it's your participation in some of the arts opportunities that we have, or coaching one of the Parks and Rec, basketball, volleyball, baseball, all the different programs that we do, that it really takes 40,000 of us actively engaged as citizens to make Hickory such a great place. So I want to express our gratitude as the city staff to you all. And then my charge to you, which I think Mr. Straw already kind of gave you all that charge, is we really want to have, just like we're passionate in terms of the 640 employees of the city of Hickory, we really want 34,000 citizens and residents of Hickory who are passionate about Hickory as well, and who are helping us recruit new people and new businesses to come and participate and be part of what we think is just a fantastic community. So that's my charge and my invitation to you all to continue to serve one another in the various ways that you already do, and in the things that you're interested in the community, to take the opportunity to volunteer to serve on boards and commissions, and just to be an active advocate for this place that is our home, this place where we live that we all love. So thank you all very much.
Mr. Berry, I might have misunderstood you, but at the last census, we had 40,010 people.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did not want to omit the 10. Thank you. He is a former CPA, so.
Now, I didn't count them personally. Okay, next order of business is election of Mayor Pro Tem for calendar year 2013.
Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Hank Guess.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Seaver, second by Mr. Byrd. Any discussion or other nominations? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Lael seconded. I'm sorry. Do we have any discussion or other nominations? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Congratulations, it's unanimous. Mr. Gibb?
I didn't vote.
Oh, well, by abstaining, he's credited with the yes vote.
No way.
So, next, appointment of a city attorney. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion for Mr. Crum.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Guest, second by Ms. Patton. Any discussion or other nominations? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It's unanimous. You know, I did that out of order. I did that out of order, didn't I? Okay, a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 20th.
Mr. Mayor, if I can interrupt you for a second,
Whoa,
we
whoa, whoa,
actually
whoa.
do this oath of office for both of them.
Well, I'm first going to ask Mr. Crone to come forward, please. Are you willing to serve?
Yes, sir.
I state your name.
I, John Crone,
Do solemnly swear that I will support,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
uphold, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States.
uphold, defend, and support the laws of the United States.
That I will support, uphold, and defend the Constitution
And I will support, uphold, and defend the Constitution,
and laws of the state of North Carolina,
laws of the state of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith.
not inconsistent therewith.
That I will observe and obey the laws and ordinances of the city of Hickory,
I will observe and obey the laws and ordinances of the city of Hickory,
and that I will faithfully perform and discharge the duties
and I will faithfully perform and discharge the duties
incumbent upon me as city attorney
incumbent upon me as city attorney
of the city of Hickory,
of the city of Hickory,
fairly and honestly,
fairly and honestly,
and to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God.
to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God. Thank you.
Mr. Crone, how many years?
I think it's 20.
20 years. Let's hear it for the Mr. Gibbs. I state your name.
I, Hank Guess,
Do solemnly swear that I will support,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
uphold, and defend the Constitution
uphold, and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States.
and the laws of the United States,
That I will support, uphold, and defend
that I will support, uphold, and defend
the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith.
not inconsistent therewith,
That I will observe and obey the laws and ordinances
that I will observe and obey the laws and ordinances
of the city of Hickory,
of the city of Hickory,
and that I will faithfully perform and discharge
and that I will faithfully perform and discharge
the duties incumbent upon me as Mayor Pro Tem
the duties incumbent upon me as Mayor Pro Tem
of Hickory,
of Hickory,
fairly and honestly,
fairly and honestly,
and to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God.
and to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of November 20th?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Fox, second by Mrs. Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It's unanimous. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of November 14th?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Patton, second by Ms. Fox. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Are any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Excuse me. Do we have a motion to reaffirm and ratify on second reading?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Patton, second by Mr. Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion's carried unanimously. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
To be approved.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Mr. Lael. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion's carried. Okay, public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first public hearing, I will ask Police Department to come forward. And Captain Wisnett to present to City Council the proposed amendment to the Hickory City Code, Chapter 16, prior to opening up for the public hearing. Captain Wisnett.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Cron, thank you tonight for the opportunity to present to you our proposed amendment to Chapter 16 of Hickory City Code, which deals with pawnbrokers, metal dealers, and scrap dealers. This is an issue and has been an issue and became more of an issue in October of this year when the state of North Carolina passed the Metal Theft Prevention Act of 2012. Which in essence grouped all of those three things into one statute as far as state law, and gave us authority as a city and as a police department on certain things to better streamline and regulate those issues. So what we wanted to do was, in effect, amend our city code to where it would more closely mirror state law and give us certain authorities and streamline, help some of the businesses that are required to report transactions of those types. A little bit of background on the thing, and you actually have a copy, should have a copy in front of you, that there's been just a few changes to since the last copy that you would have received, and nothing of substance. There was just a couple places where the state statute number had changed, and we needed to go back and correct the state statute numbers to where it matches the Metal Theft Act where it was recodified. This is found under General Statute Chapter 66, Article 45. Just a little bit of background, brief history. That statute, state law, requires precious metal dealers to obtain a permit from local law enforcement agency for each precious metal business within that jurisdiction. So anybody operating a precious metal business within the city limits of Hickory is required to seek a permit from the police department. It currently requires precious metal dealers to maintain records and report all of the transactions in a manner that would be authorized by the local law enforcement agencies, and they have 48 hours to do those transactions. So any of the business transactions that they do within 48 hours, they have to make those available and provide those in some form or fashion to us at the police department. It also requires pawnbrokers to maintain records and report all daily transactions in a manner authorized by the local law enforcement agencies. For years and years, all pawn tickets have been transmitted to the police department, and we actually have folks that do data entry and enter all those and check against any stolen property that's been reported at the police department. Our staff currently does that. We receive all copies of pawn tickets, some of which are mailed, and in various forms is how we receive them. And also in that article, state law, it requires scrap dealers to maintain daily records of transactions which must be made available or provided to law enforcement if we request it. And what it does, what state statutes gives us the authority to, in essence, say how we would like that data sent to us. So it says that records shall be filed in a manner authorized by the local law enforcement agency and may include reporting electronically over a computer network. So that's a little bit about the history. Currently, how does it affect us? We have currently 18 precious metal dealers operating or doing business within the city limits of Hickory, 7 pawnbrokers, and 1 scrap metal recycler. Kind of the effects and what staff recommendation would be. Currently, we receive a large number of transaction records from precious metal dealers and pawnbrokers. Again, our pawnbrokers All those things, all the pawn tickets are currently entered by staff members of the police department. It takes up quite a bit of time to enter those, a very large number. Precious metal dealers, we receive those notifications. We actually get those. Some send them handwritten. We receive some in the mail. Some are electronically mailed in an Excel file. Some are hand delivered. Again, we have 18 precious metal dealers and probably 4 or 5 different ways in which they send that data to us. And we don't have the staff currently, we don't have enough staffing to take and enter all that data to where it's in a good searchable form to match those transaction records against our stolen property. It's kind of created, the state in essence had good intentions by having those businesses send us those records, but in essence, it's such a large volume of data that we're just currently struggle to manage it unless we go through, in essence, a banker's box a month is what we're filling up with paper. In order for records to be adequately searched and reviewed, again, we really need to be getting that in some sort of computerized database. Records currently for scrap metal dealers are reviewed on site at the recycling business. State law gives us the authority if we would like to request that they transmit or send those to us, but it specifies that they at least have to maintain records. Currently, we go on site of recycling businesses. There's only one again in the city of Hickory, and we look at their records on an as-needed basis. Amendment to Chapter 16 would help us out. We feel it would streamline, and we know it would streamline for us, and would also streamline for the businesses. It would require pawnbrokers, precious metal dealers, and secondary metal recyclers to report their transactions electronically to one system approved by the police department. In essence, they would be doing the data entry. They're required to track it anyway, so they would be doing the data entry into a system that we would have access to view those records that would be searchable. They can review their own business records. The database program that we're looking at using would be a vendor that would be contracted by us. It would be at no cost to any of the business owners. And it would provide a way for businesses to store and transmit transaction records while eliminating the need for our staff to enter large amounts of data and keep bankers' boxes on file. So really we feel that it would be a win-win not only for us but also for the business owners. And so with that, I will take any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
Do the coin dealers fall under those guidelines too?
Coin dealers and precious metal dealers are a little bit different. Some do both, but a precious metal dealer really applies to jewelry, gold, that kind of thing.
Does the cost to maintain and initiate that offset the cost of what it is now to have people manually enter the data? What's the difference?
The cost savings, in essence, if we were to enter all that data, we've estimated it would take 1 to 2 full-time positions of nothing but data entry to manage the amount of data that we have. And as you know, we currently have officers that enter the pawn tickets. It was going to free that up. We're going to have immediate access. In essence, the precious metal dealers by statute would have 48 hours to do it. And then state law says daily on the recyclers and also the pawnbrokers. So they would have 24 hours to submit their records. But once the transaction is done, they enter it in the computer, it would be immediately viewable by us. It would totally eliminate the need for data entry on our end.
I guess my question is, what is our cost?
Our cost currently would just be staff time to enter all the pawn tickets, which is, our desk.
With the new system. To do it the new way.
With the vendor, what would the cost be?
Right.
Roughly $8,000 a year to manage all three.
And they supervise it also?
Yeah, they actually check it against NCIC, so they have access to NCIC and would actually alert us of any stolen property hits that they would have. There's actually currently 82 law enforcement agencies in North Carolina alone that subscribe to this vendor that we're looking at going to, and so we feel that it would not only streamline the process, but probably would increase our ability to recover stolen property on some of our cases.
One more quick question. If some of our stolen merchandise ends up in another city or another county, it also tracks that?
Nationwide, yes, sir.
And then you don't have storage, as you're saying.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Before I open the public hearing, I'd like to always go over the ground rules. We ask that those speaking against a proposal be respectful of everyone and limit their comments to a combined 15 minutes. The city clerk will call out time at 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 9, 12. We then give opportunity for the same amount of time for those favoring the proposal we want to speak. And then we have 5 minutes for rebuttal and so rebuttal. But our custom has been that we do not use these time limits to restrict someone who has something meaningful that they really want to say. I think I've covered what we need to cover there. I'll now declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone who would like to speak against this proposal. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this proposal? There being no one desiring to speak, I declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion.
Motion for approval. Second.
Motion by Mr. Guess, second by Mr. Seaver. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion is carried.
Next item of business is departmental reports, and I'll ask city staff attorney Ms. Arnita Bueller to come to the podium and to present a presentation on her research regarding demolition and mitigation, specifically of dust and other issues.
Mayor, City Council, Mr. Cronin, Mr. Berry. In some circumstances, this is probably a joyful moment to my ears, because it means that property is being readied, hopefully in preparation for new and exciting projects, cleaning up vacant and abandoned buildings that cannot be reused. Tonight, though, I'm standing before you to present a little bit of information on mitigation of demolition impacts as a result of, I think, some comments and discussion from our previous meeting. The way I've broken this down, first of all, I've included some North Carolina building codes that are relevant to this topic, a little bit of North Carolina statutes, and our land development code, our Hickory City Code, and then some considerations for you, as well as some options. The North Carolina Building Code lays out the following requirements in Chapter 23, and I won't read those word for word for you, but you can see the first three that are required for demolitions by the Building Code, dealing with egress, provision of documents, and protection of pedestrians, dealing with the vacant lot, making sure it's filled in accordingly. The next one is, I think, important as I continue the presentation. It deals with accumulation of water or damage to foundations or premises or damage to the adjoining party. And, of course, dealing with utilities, which have to be, of course, disconnected and capped for safety reasons, of course. Now, there are other provisions I didn't put in. Some are federal, some are state building code provisions that deal with or regulate special conditions, such as asbestos removal. And as far as our local enforcement action with regard to special conditions, such as asbestos removal, the local action or enforcement action is always in conjunction with the appropriate agency. So there are other agencies that deal with this particular area. Some relevant North Carolina general statutes, 168-420, it grants, of course, our local inspectors authority to make as many inspections as necessary and to work on the demolition permit progresses. 168-421, it grants authority to building inspectors to issue stop work orders if a demolition is being done in a hazardous manner, substantially violates applicable law, or endangers life or property. It also includes an appeals procedure for property owners contesting stop work orders. And what is critical there is that a stop work order just can't be lightly done. The provisions that are laid out, it has to be evidence that it's being done in a hazardous manner, or it substantially violates law, applicable law, or endangers life or property. And in the endangerment part, of course, it's plain language. It can't be just inconveniencing, but it has to be evidence that life or property is actually in jeopardy of harm, imminent harm, in fact. For example, if a contractor is out on the job and they happen to be using their equipment and they're swinging materials out over a busy street, well, that would be quite obvious that that represents an imminent danger to life and property from passersby, people who are driving on the street. No one would want a piece of demolition material dropped on a car or on a pedestrian. So that would be an example of the type of condition that would be occurring that will fall under this portion of the statute. Of course, enforcement statutes exist, and you've of course been privy to this in the presentations made by our code enforcement officials, and also upon occasion, rare occasions, the code enforcement has brought before you an ordinance requesting you to approve of the demolition of a property. That usually occurs in circumstances where the property owner refuses to abate the condition or is unable to abate the conditions, and therefore the city must do the demolition of the structure. That entails bringing an ordinance before you, actually having a hearing and going through all of those procedures in order to abate that particular situation. Also, one thing our code enforcement officials must have the necessary tools to effectively enforce statutes. For example, the ability to immediately write citations with effective fines, because it's one thing to issue a stop order, it's another thing to be able to get people's attention and to really make them follow through on any requirements that are laid out in our ordinances or in the statutes. This portion deals with removal of the building, the actual demolition. Of course, the structure has to be declared to be unsafe. And depending upon the exact condition, it can either be ordered to be repaired or removed. Now, the latter part of this particular provision, provision B, deals with the city's ability to remove or to demolish a structure. And you'll note in that latter part that if the city actually conducts the demolition, the city is supposed to sell any usable materials of the building and any personal property, fixtures, or appurtenances found therein. And the proceeds from the sale of these materials goes against the cost of the demolition. As you are probably, I'm sure, well aware of, if the city conducts a demolition, the cost of that demolition become a lien against that property. And the method to collect on that lien typically is through foreclosing on that lien, which entails another procedure or process to do a foreclosure to collect on the funds that are represented from the cost of the demolition, which is, of course, in our next section, B1. And there it gives you, of course, the jurisdiction that the city has. Also, something that we don't point out very often is not only are the demolition costs a lien against the particular property where the actual demolition takes place, it's actually a lien on any other properties that owner has within the city's limits. And it says up to 1 mile, but really more so within the city limits, except for the owner's primary residence. And I don't think a lot of people realize that if you own a number of properties and they're within the city limits and you as the owner have not done or conducted a demolition, the city has had to do it, that lien attaches to all pieces of property that you as an owner may have, other than the property where your primary residence is located. Of course, C, we have broad powers to define and declare what our nuisances are and to abate those nuisances. Some relevant Hickory City Code of Ordinances. Chapter 20 deals with conditions that may actually lead to a demolition. And I've only picked out 4 conditions that seem to be most relevant, including, of course, the catch-all, whatever is dangerous to human life or health, there is a violation. Number 2, whatever renders the air, food, or water to be unwholesome. And 3, dealing with building structure that doesn't have adequate means of egress or ingress, and fails on these other conditions as well. Now, of course, as part of the process for declaring a property to constitute a nuisance, an owner must be given due process. It's something that can't be immediately done unless there really is an imminent danger to health, life, the life and health of the public, where a summary procedure can be done, but to date, we have not done, to my knowledge, any like that. They've all been either owner abated or the city has followed through with the process of bringing basically an ordinance before you to abate that particular one. Now, note this chapter, of course, is different from the minimum housing and building code chapters in our code of ordinances. And so this isn't necessarily in relationship to demolitions. This is part of a process that must be followed. That's assuming it's done under nuisance code. Demolitions sometimes occur under minimum housing, which is another chapter. And the last one, this one was fairly new. I think this particular provision was actually added in 2007 or 2008, I think, when former Assistant City Manager Tom Carl was here. This provision was added and the chapter was amended. And this covers waste materials, lumber, junk, trash, debris, etc., that can be found accumulated on property, sometimes as a result of construction. You see it includes construction materials that may be left behind after the work is discontinued for a certain period. And then, of course, C, dealing with earth or sand that erodes and actually manages to travel onto sidewalks, streets, or other properties. Another one to perhaps speak to the noise suppression. I think that was something that perhaps had been expressed, an interest in dealing with noise created by demolitions. In Chapter 19 of our code, Section 19-2 expressly prohibits certain noises. Specifically, though, dealing with building operations, and the key part here deals with, if you'll travel 4 lines down, that demolition, one of the things, can occur between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekends. And this is an exception to noise ordinance. So this is actually currently in our noise ordinance, dealing with construction noise, demolition noise, etc. Another potential relevant one, and this deals with dust suppression if measures were implemented to utilize water or other liquid type resources to suppress dust at demolition sites. Article 11 of the Hickory Land Development Code deals with the discharge of stormwater. More specifically, provision 11.1.5, it basically states that no person can discharge non-stormwater into our system with the exception of the following. And, again, I will not read all of those to you, but it goes on actually through letter S. Now, depending upon if an ordinance were adopted requiring dust suppression through the use of water, depending on the location, the surface of the particular property, whether there's a lot of impervious surfaces, potential exists for water, accumulation of water, and for that to be discharged into our storm system, potentially. To cover that, it would most likely be necessary to not only draft an ordinance to address such an issue, but possibly you have to look at, or the planning commission would have to look at amending the land development code to permit discharge of that type of water, or runoff of that type of water. And this, of course, deals with the violation of improper discharge. And back on slide 3, I made a notation or made a statement that the provision dealing with the accumulation of water was an important one in addition to the others as far as demolition requirements, and that's why I pointed that one out, because of this. Measures would have to be taken to prevent water from flowing onto, not only into our storm drains, but also onto other properties, particularly if copious amounts of water have to be used. Now, some considerations, and these are just some, I'm sure there are many, many more. One, dealing with resources, the code enforcement officials would necessarily have to perform probably more frequent inspections to ensure the contractors are following any new requirements regarding dust suppression and noise control. Because depending on the nature of the structure, the size of it, the watering or the wetting down has to be sometimes on a continuous basis. And again, considerable amounts of water sometimes may have to be used to wet it down. So the inspections would have to take place more frequently to make sure that is occurring. Other things dealing with logistics, I will drop down to the second one. Currently, we do not permit contractors, except under extraordinary circumstances, to hook up to our fire hydrants. So measures would have to be taken to permit that. In addition, if it was determined that contractors could not hook up to our fire hydrants, they would have to use tanker trucks with pumps on site for a source of water. Also, permits would have to be changed to reflect any new conditions outlined in any new ordinance amendments, because the permit must be very specific about what the contractor is required to do. Another consideration dealing with it is the potential for increased costs. And that is if you use water to wet down the structure, the potential exists, again, depending on the materials that are being wet, that saturated materials, of course, potentially would weigh more and potentially would increase any tipping fees. If the owners are abating them, those costs more than likely would be passed on to owners. There are also other dust suppression methods and noise control methods that also would have their own associated costs with them. And those more than likely would be passed on to owners, again, assuming owners are abating most of these. Dealing with the salvaging issue, if you recall from statute 168-432, the city is supposed to actually sell materials that are usable. And if the city is doing the demolition, city contractor who was in a contract or agreement with the city, then the potential is if you wet the materials down, you may not be able to recycle or to use as much to sell to mitigate the cost of the demolition, which of course again becomes a lien on the actual property. One stat, and you've heard this I think already, I'm sure from our code enforcement officials, in fiscal year 2011-2012, 96% of all demolitions ordered by the city were carried out by the property's owners, which means those costs were not incurred necessarily by the city. And since 2008, the figure is the city has saved $1.7 million in costs because owners did the demolitions. This next one, and the caveat is so far. Unfortunately, with the number of municipalities, I have not been able to check every municipality in the state. I've done some random searching. In fact, I did a little bit more searching today and found actually Greensboro actually has a very brief provision in its chapter related to demos, which talks about very brief dust suppression. But in sending out requests on the local government lawyers listserv to other municipal attorneys inquiring about how they are dealing with those issues, I didn't get many responses related to use of dust suppression methods and noise control methods. But that's not to say they're not out there. So that would require some additional research to see how others may be dealing with those issues. However, I did find some in other states. But the caveat there is that their state building codes and state statutes may permit or authorize them to include such provisions, whereas our building code and state statutes are actually sort of silent on that aspect. So what are the options? Option, and in no particular order, but one option is to draft a new ordinance or amend a current ordinance to include dust and noise mitigating requirements or other mitigation requirements of other problems or issues that you may see or hear about. More than likely, the most likely place for any new provision would actually be in Chapter 6 of our code. Chapter 6 is buildings, and Article 5 deals with condemnation, repair, and demolition of unsafe buildings. Option number 2 is to, if the city takes on more demolitions, and of course is contracting with companies to do it, then provisions could be included in the contracts themselves. And finally, of course, code enforcement officials can continue working with all parties involved, contractors, the property owners, and adjacent property owners on an individual basis to resolve issues. Back to the first one, drafting an ordinance, as I said, would require additional research and, of course, definitely caution in crafting in a provision so as not to inadvertently impact other areas. For example, putting in a noise provision, you have to be careful that if you didn't carefully craft it, it would apply, for example, to construction noise as well as demolition noises. And of course, it would require input from multiple departments who may be impacted or affected, such as planning, our police, public services, and fire. And this is what we hope it looks like when they're finished. Hopefully ready to put up a new structure or do something else that would be beneficial to the city. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them with one caveat. By no means am I a demolition or building code expert, so be limited in your questioning.
I'm pretty impressed.
You may become that.
Pardon?
You may become the expert.
Second income stream, second career.
This gonna be one where we talk about it in the planning session, or more to come in the future? or-
Well, it's really up to you all. I think when it was brought with kind of a request to give us some background and give us a sense of the landscape, no pun intended, how something like this might be done. And so we've done that, and really are looking to you all to give us a little more direction or whatever you all would like us to do.
I think the city has certainly benefited by the unrelated, and I would not want to put ordinances out there that would further a cost to them when the city benefits so much by having these buildings laid.
Well, I don't think we need to get into further regulating the dust business. So it's not a perfect world. That the demolition project that brought this up, it happens to be on my walking around. And there was noise. It was contained. It was over an amount of maybe 2 weeks. And you've got to look at the other side of having a vacant building that's attracting vagrants. The site has been cleaned up. And we're all subjected to some kind of dust. You can get out and blow your leaves. We have a great leaf pickup in Hickory, but that promotes dust to some extent. And if you choose to live in an urban society, it's a trade-off. And I would be opposed to getting into any kind of ordinance that starts examining how we're going to monitor dust. And I appreciate Ms. Doula's thorough look into all of this, but I would be opposed to moving forward with any kind of dust ordinance.
It sounds to me like our noise ordinance already covers the issue related to noise. So I wouldn't think that we would need to do anything for that.
And, one of the options that Ms. Doula put up on the screen was was building inspectors and our staff to work individually and look for solutions to issues.
Problem.
And I this kind of thing may be best handled in that fashion because it's going to be difficult to legislate all the possible contingencies, scenarios, all that kind of thing. And I was the guy that brought it up, but I certainly understand the sort of the difficulty in trying to do something like that. And I'm particularly sensitive to the fact that having wet materials on landfill is going to cost more money, and tipping is not cheap. So perhaps there's some room for our staff to do like they've done, particularly the code enforcement folks. They've done a great job in working with us.
Is it the state or the federal government that monitors that particulate matter in the air? Area they still do that. I haven't heard a lot about it in a long time. A lot of that
We
going
got
on.
in compliance. We got in compliance, and I guess that's why we haven't been hearing anything.
Well, it's very interesting because a neighbor to that particular demolition obviously had some dust problems, but another neighbor was glad that it was cleaned up and it was gone. So that's the trade-off. Regulating dust is going to be.
Well, and there's so many variables like wind and, that you just have no control over.
Well, I'm sort of going through something like that in my business for, I think we're going on the 3rd or 4 weeks. Completely excavated. And by completely excavating, I mean 15 feet wide and 12 feet deep. A gas pipe to recover. So
we've had the dust, we've had the noise, 24-hour-a-day lights. But you just live with it. When it needs to be done, I think those guys are doing what they can, and I certainly don't want leaking gas pipes. Fairgrove Church.
We can stipulate it be done in the rain.
And of course, there'd be a lot of demolitions that wouldn't have been done in the last 3 months.
Anyhow, I do appreciate Ms. Dooley's work and effort. It shows she put forth a lot there. Thank you.
I'd say the end result of what the city benefits should lead us to leave this alone. Like says, they've worked very well, and let them continue to do the good work.
We have consensus, and I would express also appreciation to Ms. Dola. That work's not wasted. Hold on to it. We may need it at some future date. Agreement for the shared costs for upgrade and expansion of the wastewater treatment facility.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask Assistant Public Services Director, Mr. Kevin Greer, to come to the podium and present this agreement to the City Council. Appreciate the good media coverage we received on this in the Hickory Daily Record, and Cobb County took action on this contract at their meeting yesterday.
Mayor Wright, members of the council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crum, thank you for allowing me to speak. And I would go, not very respectful of Mr. Stroff, I wouldn't say I'm finally happy that somebody realized that the water guys are cooler than the fire department and the police department.
Mr. Greer, you're looking down.
Yes, I
have. For a long time.
Tonight we're going to talk about the agreement for shared costs for the upgrade of our Catawba wastewater treatment plant. The city of Hickory purchased that facility in 2003 from the town of Catawba, and in that purchase we actually got the wastewater treatment plant, the collection system, and the distribution system. As a part of that negotiation, we worked, of course, with Catawba County. The existing facility, you'll see here's a pretty small blob, and I'll show you in a future picture. The existing facility is a 225,000 gallon a day plant. It was originally constructed in 1956 as the last upgrade that we know of. Originally it was in the 40s when it was built. So the existing facility is, of course, pushing almost 60 years old now. As I said before, the city of Hickory did work with Catawba County, and we actually sold, in 2003 when we worked with them on the original purchase, we actually sold treatment rights at the facility. No ownership, just the ability to actually send sewer there for us to treat it. The reason behind that was, of course, we wanted to be able to control and somewhat guide responsible growth in the Sherrills Ford area, so we wanted to be a part of that development. And then following up from that in 2006, Catawba County and the city of Hickory saw the interest and, of course, the need to upgrade that facility or to plan for the future growth of that facility. Again, to address the area in Sherrills Ford, the area in and around the town of Catawba, which we had the obligation for, and then any other areas that we could serve as growth. But again, us be able to somewhat control and ensure that there's responsible growth. This move also was in big part to make sure that we were a part of any kind of economic development that took place in that corridor, to be sure that the city of Hickory would see benefit back from that. The facility that we have designed and proposed and actually permitted and bid now is a 1.5 million gallon a day plant. And that meets the first phase needs for the Sherrills Ford area in the town of Catawba as we know it. It is oxidation ditch, which just parallels the northeast plant. So it's the same facility, the same design, of course the same city staff that are working on that. So it should go as a smooth facility, we're hoping, through the construction process. To date, these are the numbers that we're working off of. We've received construction bids of 10,219, so just over $10 million. We have negotiated a construction admin contract for 520. The double asterisk there by contingency is because that's really money that's unknown yet. That kind of develops through construction, but that would be our recommendation. That's a 10% contingency for a total project cost of $11,008,000. The contract that's before you tonight for consideration stipulates what follows in the 2006 agreement with Catawba County, that we would split those costs 50-50. We would split equally the cost of upgrading that facility. The city of Hickory is proposing to borrow in this contract. We're proposing to borrow $9.9 million. That keeps us under the $10 million for the bank qualified loans. So that it's a financial move for us, and it would be purchased through installment purchase. That leaves us a balance that we know of construction-wise for the project of $840,000. That $840 would be cash that between the city of Hickory and Catawba County, again, we would split that equally, and so it would be cash out of pocket, as well as any contingency funds that are needed to be spent would be cash out of pocket. Again, split equally between the two of us. The way that'll work is the city actually will be the holder of the note, so we'll have the loan in our name. We will bill Catawba County 60 days prior to any kind of amortization payment that's due. That way we got the money in hand before the payment's due for their half. And then the city of Hickory will split sales tax. So any sales tax reimbursement that takes place at the end of the project, we will actually split those 50-50 with Catawba County as well. So any expenses we have, we split. Any revenues we see, we split. And the life of the loan, as we proposed, is 15 years. Short and sweet, but with that, I'll answer any questions that you have. The one thing I will add is that Catawba County actually approved this contract yesterday at their commissioner meeting with unanimous vote.
There was some scuttlebutt, there were no oppositions to Catawba County.
No, it was all supporters that spoke.
That made reference to construction bid. Was there multiple bids? I'm sorry.
No, this project, we had one bid, so we just had it out for one. There were, I think, 11 bidders in total. Jimmy Lynch was the low bid, and council's already accepted that bid in the October meetings.
I don't have a question, but I do, a statement. I was substituting in a science class at Hickory High and learned 70% of the earth is water. 1% of that water is fresh water. And most of that is glaciers. That shows you how rare and how precious drinking water, clean water for us is.
That's right.
And it's not being invented every day.
I think that's a good observation Mr. Straw had, that we're a regional water provider, so now we are going to become more of a regional sewer provider.
That's correct.
And the benefit to Hickory and the citizens for that is it keeps our rates for our citizens low. And, you know, if there weren't shared agreements like this, and every municipality had to operate their own system, I mean, it would be expensive, particularly some of these smaller ones. And Hickory's in the best position to do it. I mean, frankly, Kevin is the king of sewer. I mean, the other piece I think is important, and it deserves mention. It provides sewer to an area of the county, although not directly within our municipal limits, that is likely to grow. That is, you know, just across the 150 bridge from an explosion of growth associated with Mooresville. And we need that for our county and for Hickory specifically.
Well, when the 16 continues to come this way, we're going to have creeping growth coming this way too.
That's correct.
So we'll end up with shoppers, people getting their health care, people getting their financial services. So
We benefit by it.
I think we benefit.
I move approval.
I'm going to be honest. I have struggled with this, and I understand the benefits of shared road, but I also look at what is going on in Hickory. I look at our permitting processes, our commercial permits, our development processes, our empty buildings all over town, and there is a good side to this, but there is also another side of this. And I normally look and side with responsible growth, and I certainly look to the greater good. But in this instance, I'm going to weigh in on the side of the investment in Hickory. And that's been hard for me because I haven't been odd man out in a while. But I'm just going to be odd man out on this one because I think there's another side of looking at this. And when I read the Priceless developer, Crescent Land and Timber, what about development here? What about development here? And there are just two sides to this, and I guess I have to be brave enough to speak the other side.
Well, I dwelled a lot on this for a variety of reasons, but I have long said and believed that population drives jobs and jobs drives population. We would like to be able to say that we can force the growth to not occur in the southeastern part of the county, but instead to happen here. Well, it's going to happen down there, and they in fact had alternatives that would not include Hickory. We decided that we needed to be part of that would help drive our population as well as theirs. We are not using general fund revenues. We are using, correct me if I'm wrong here, we're using capital project money. And we have taken care of all of the capital projects we need this time. So I feel very comfortable that this is in fact the thing we need to do for the good of Catawba County.
I think regionally, and if we all benefit, we will get some of that benefit too. Even if it's on the other side of the county, we will benefit by it.
And with Inspiring Spaces, we're looking seriously at ways to cause further development in Hickory. And that will require investment, and I think all of us have agreed we're going to be willing to invest. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
It is 6-1. Mrs. Fox voted no. Well, I'd like to take the honor of appointing or nominating Alderman Meisner. I haven't asked for this gentleman to serve, but Alderman Meisner as our delegate to the Western Piedmont Council of Governments Policy Board, and Alderman Patton as alternate.
Second.
Any discussion or other nominations? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. The motion was by Wright, the second by Seaver. Any other nominations?
I'd just like to say, if there's anyone present who lives in Ward 4 that's interested in being on the recycling board, I know it's been vacant for quite some time, and I'm having a difficult time finding someone that wants to serve on it.
Ward 3 has a seat on that available too.
Well, it looks like we need a couple in Parks and Recreation, and I would be very receptive to hearing folks give me suggestions.
Well,
Parks and Recreation, and one of those is Mrs. Fox.
One of those is mine, and I'm working with someone right now.
Oh, sure, okay, I meant suggestions on mine. Any petitions and requests? Matters not on the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I would ask council's indulgence to hear a matter that's not on the agenda, specifically a second reading on the item that y'all considered on consent.
Which one is that, Mr. Beard?
It's the change order item G to the Pizza Gala construction for Northeast Wastewater Treatment Plant. It was brought to my attention right before the meeting that we had agreed with, and this is actually a reduction from $20,000. They need to close out their books in the calendar year, and we had told them we would try to get that action completed tonight for them so they can close out their books completely for the calendar year and be done with it. So I told them I would bring that to your attention this evening.
You know, we've talked in terms of trying to limit those situations. Surely, if we do it at the next meeting, they'll have plenty of time to close their books.
Yeah, that's
As an old accountant, I would just say.
that's their accounting issues, right?
I don't know, I'd say let's just let it go through the normal 2-week process unless there's some compelling reason. I hate to pass on a chance to approve the reduction tonight.
Yeah, I would, first of all, move that we consider it.
What's the?
Item G for us, for second reading.
I mean, what's the benefit of not doing it tonight?
The only benefit is we talked about restricting the number of times. This on occasion, this
perhaps impairs the citizen's right to address council on an issue. By giving them 2 weeks, we have more time to think about it. They have more time to think about it. Now, this is one of those proverbial no-brainers. So I probably shouldn't bring this up.
We
but
end up losing money on it.
If
we end up losing money.
No, I mean, it's a
We're not gonna
technical
lose money.
issue. It's just going to be able to close out the.
You know, I don't have a problem with it, but I do want people to, I do want the staff to be thinking in terms of making it a very rare occasion that we don't use the 2 weeks. Because that is a time that the citizens of Lee get to consider our actions. With that, I'll ask for motion or discussion.
I move, Mr. Mayor, what's the status of that motion? I moved that we
Okay,
consider the
we
item,
consider it.
and I did not hear a second, so it may die.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Lael has made a motion, we consider the staff request. Mr. Meisner has seconded that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion is carried unanimous. Now, do we have motion or discussion on the matter of second reading tonight?
I'd move approval of the second reading of this item for the convenience of the contractor.
I'll second
Motion by Mr. Lael, second by Mr. Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, right.
Well, we're the one getting the 20,000.
We'll let them vote for this.
General comments?
that. This week.
Hickory Parade Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
That should be a good time. I've heard that there are lots of floats this year. Is that right? Anybody know? I've heard lots of floats. I'd just like to say once again, it's been a big night for Mr. Greer, and he deserves it. The king of surfer.
I hope that doesn't.
We're going to name the wastewater treatment plant after him.
Yeah, thank you.
Any people who would like to be heard? We have a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Patton, second by Mr. Lael. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thanks for being here.